I love the Uggs.
Thank you. Honestly, I've been in a really big phase with them lately. I moved like 2 weeks ago, and this has been the uniform every single day.
Oh, it's
has been the Uggs.
Great.
Bring them back. I say.
I may get into those.
I think that you should.
It's giving very much like early high school years.
Yeah. So I did go through a phase where that was like a reality that I was living in for a little while.
Would you do boots or did you always do the
I did
egg
hot pink
eyes?
Uggs. Hot pink boots. And honestly, they came from my grandma, which is the funny part. She bought them for herself and I didn't fit them. And I was like, can I have them? So I felt really cool. Yeah.
Oh, your grandma's really cool.
She is. She's the coolest lady ever.
Very, very special lady.
Totally.
The fact that she felt like hot pink Uggs could be for her.
Hey, fashion is self-expression, and she knew exactly what she wanted to express. So, yeah, it was a good vibe.
What do you think it was?
I think, honestly, probably just trying something different. I don't know. Now that I'm thinking about it, never owned a pair of shoes that were ever similar to that. I have no idea what it was. Maybe just on a whim, try something different. Mm-hmm.
And you know what? They ended up on your feet.
They did, and I wore those Uggs every single day because if I wanted to be anything, it was like my Tumblr page. There was just so many photos I wanted to be similar. Wearing them now.
By the way, we've already started. This is going in there. I
Okay,
don't give a
great.
shit.
You can put whatever.
Hi, beautiful human. I'm Zach. That's Dan. And we welcome to the studio for the first time ever. Very excited to have her here. mxmtoon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Woo! You are awesome.
That is so sweet. Thank you.
Are you a chronic creature of the internet?
Have you seen me? Yeah, I absolutely am. Yes.
You ooze internet culture in ways that, like, I like in the deepest ways.
Thank you.
Yeah, in the best ways?
Yeah, best ways probably.
Okay, we have a lot of music to discuss, but this album that we're about to get on November 1st has ties to memes.
It does. I brought a lot of memes into a lot of sessions, and that was like what created a handful of these songs. Yeah.
So you see a meme and you feel emotion from it. Or is it understanding? Can you explain it to me?
I think, like, honestly, humor is such an accessible form for people to understand ideas. And I think that memes are a really kind of awesome way to jumpstart a conversation when you're going into a session with sometimes people you've never met before in order to, like, have a conversation about something that maybe is, like, really emotionally vulnerable. You can take it from a meme that is making light of something that's, like, maybe a core idea that you want to dive into, but using humor as a way to jumpstart that instead of feeling like you come in and immediately start like trauma dumping on a producer or a co-writer. It felt like a really fun way to do that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
It's a cool way to break the ice and like allow for this vulnerable space.
100%. I found it to be a really effective route and when writing music and like also great to kind of have this thesis that you keep coming back to when you're making a song to feel like, am I actually staying true to what the initial idea was that I wanted to write about? And memes are great. It's just consolidated into one singular idea, and then you expand upon it in a song.
Will you share the memes that inspired each record?
Absolutely, yeah. I've like talked about some of them online. There was like one, I've got like a Pinterest board of the different ones that I brought into sessions, and so like...
And it's all via PowerPoint, right?
They're all via PowerPoint, yeah. That's my favorite way to deliver information, so
of course,
it's been fun.
It's middle school.
It's like in middle school, I'm wearing my Uggs, I'm doing a PowerPoint presentation. It's a good vibe. Yeah, I never got past the age of 13, pretty much. Yeah.
But you've like kind of like drifted away and you've come back to your roots.
Totally.
Uggs and PowerPoint.
Uggs and PowerPoints. What is like, I feel like, aren't people their like truest self when they're a preteen in the most awkward form of their life?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I also believe that like my middle school into high school years, like I had blind confidence, this crazy naivete that allowed me to just act on like whatever my impulse was, which ultimately led me to make the best decisions of my life that would get me here.
Totally. I mean, like, I can absolutely credit like a lot of what I get to do nowadays to what decisions and choices I was making when I was 13. Yeah.
Can we break that down? Because you do start like you learn music traditionally, right? And you... So what is this? Like you end up wanting to be, like you auditioned for the school rock band?
I did. When I was 10, I switched schools. And so I needed to make some friends. And I heard they were playing Wonderwall by Oasis. And I knew that song. And so I had been playing cello for a while. And I thought that maybe I could play rock cello in a 5th grade band.
Sick.
Aren't kids awesome?
Yes.
Like, yes. I was like, oh, yeah, I could do that. And I'm 10. I play cello. Yeah.
Like I didn't understand that. I was like, oh, I read that you played cello and violin. I was like, okay, so like Which one of those is coming with you to the rock band audition?
Definitely the cello. I mean, that was what I remember listening to Wonderwall for the first time and being like, cello can be used in rock music, and like that blew my mind. Yeah.
But you show up there to play the cello, but you end up singing.
I end up singing because obviously they don't need a 10-year-old to play cello in the school rock band. Like, and my music director at the time, he was just like, so you know the song? And I said, yeah, I've been learning how to, sing it with my dad at home, and he plays the guitar while I'm like singing it. And he's like, well, do you want to try auditioning singing? And I said, okay. So I did it, and that completely changed my life from that point on. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. Small decisions sometimes turn into much longer impacting moments of your life. Yeah.
And there's a lot more of those, right? Like this idea that you're going to move from writing comedy songs to just confessing your truth.
Absolutely. Hey, again, start with a meme. You end up with something that is really vulnerable. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It worked out with my songs that way too.
Did you cover songs before wanting to write your own, or did you go right into like trying to like what was your inspiration? Weird Al Yankovic? Who was it?
I did actually listen to a lot of Weird Al growing up.
White and Nerdy's iconic.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I'll fight anybody on that.
It was like maybe like if I had Spotify at that point, probably would have just been like one of my most played tracks, or Amazon Music at that point. I would have probably had one of the most played tracks. But I totally like. Yeah, I loved listening to, I think I just grew up in an age of like YouTube parody was this huge genre of music online all the time. I was listening to like YouTubers do covers of songs with like altered lyrics and just thinking, I could do that, no problem. And I kind of wrote my own versions of things, but I did covers too, just because I was learning how to listen to music and develop my own taste through things like Tumblr or like 8tracks was a website I used a lot growing up.
That,
yeah,
of course.
So I don't know. I think that was just like a fun way to self-express.
But when do you realize that that's not? I mean, is it out of necessity to express yourself, or is it out of realization that people aren't reacting to your comedy songs the way you need?
Definitely out of necessity, I think, for like self-expression. I grew to learn that like music was something that felt really natural for me to tell stories through. And so initially doing things that maybe had like a lighter tone to them when I was like 14, but then also being 14 and having a lot of emotions and feelings that I didn't know how to channel into conversations or having an outlet to express myself other than making songs. And so I just did like a shot in the dark one day, and I posted a really short demo that was 40 seconds long and maybe the saddest thing I had written at that point, and put it online, and people were so receptive to it. And I think it just opened my mind to the fact that I could make things that were not just like hiding a feeling through the guise of comedy, and making stuff that felt more true to how I was feeling, and vulnerable. So that was awesome. It was really eye-opening. Mm-hmm.
What was that 40 seconds?
It was a demo called Something that was turned out to be the first verse to a song that I released called Feelings Are Fatal. And so I made an expanded version of Something into Feelings Are Fatal, and now that song has like hundreds of thousands of streams, which is so wild to me. Like, I can't even believe it. Hundreds of millions of streams, I think, actually, or something like that.
Definitely more than hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know how I'd be on the zachsang podcast if I was only doing that. Yeah.
So you expand that little song into something bigger only after you get the reception.
Yeah.
Who pushed you, or what pushed you to even share it?
I honestly think it was because I had a really large disconnect from like my follower number being a real body of people. Like growing up on the internet, it's really easy to look at a number and be like, yes, I have 100 followers or whatever it might be. But I think just being like a teenager online, you can just be super disconnected from the fact that you are interacting with other real people that are also existing on the internet. And so I think what pushed me was this feeling that it was like a void that I was posting to every single time I put out a cover of a song or made an original piece of music, and this idea that like no one was actually going to hear it. And so even if I got maybe 10 comments from people that were like saying they liked the song, I was like, well, what's the harm? My parents have no idea I'm doing this. Like, I might as well just like post the full thing for these like 10 people that said they like it, and it probably won't ever become bigger than what it is right now.
You were hiding this from your parents at first, though, weren't you?
Yeah, I was.
Why?
Okay, so I'm the child of two excellent educators who really loved to champion the idea that the internet was a non-safe place for kids. I think there was so much messaging about, the internet being new and social media being new when I was a kid growing up. And so schools were really hyper-conscious about making sure that parents were aware of their children's online activities. And being the child of two teachers that were actively kind of championing these conversations in schools and having so much of an internet presence online, I just felt like I was like a fraud, and like I could never tell my parents because they would take it all away. So if they knew that I was posting on, music online, it just would have been really scary to let them in on that because it just felt like a place that was completely my own. And if they knew about it, it would have been stripped away from me, which it wasn't, thankfully. Yeah.
When do you choose to share it with them?
Chose to share it with them when it became way too big for me to like hide anymore. I remember there was one moment where I got interviewed by a magazine and it got put on the Snapchat like main story or whatever for their publication. And so I walked into school the next day and people were like, "You make music? Like, what's going on?" And I remember thinking, oh my God. And the school I went to was one that my parents had previously worked at. And so the teachers there were like my aunts and uncles growing up. And so all of a sudden I was like, no, wait, hold on. Someone's going to tell my mom and dad before I even get the chance to tell them. And so I went home and I told them what was going on. But it was just so scary to see them like Googling me on the home computer that was in the kitchen and like hear over the speakers them listening to my songs. I was so mortified. I've never been more embarrassed in my life. Yeah.
What do you share with them? How do you even start that discussion?
I think I basically prefaced it by, Mom, Dad, like, you know that I like playing songs. And they said, yeah. And I said, well, you've heard me like sing in the middle of the night sometimes in my room. And so I've been posting like covers of songs and I've been making some original music, but I need you to know I'm being really safe online and nobody knows what my last name is. And like, that was a really big piece for them of just like, they couldn't believe it. They just thought I was, kind of depressingly singing songs to myself every single night in my room. Yeah.
But like, what a wild thing to share. Like,
it is. I was basically like Hannah Montana, I guess is the closest way to put a way to describe it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting.
Yeah, it's wild. Mm-hmm.
How do your parents feel about everything today?
They're so supportive. They're like really couldn't be prouder and are just like my biggest fans. My dad's wardrobe pretty much entirely consists of my merch, and my mom only listens to me on her playlist. It's really sweet. So I'm over the moon, and they are the best ever. Mm-hmm.
It's really special.
It is. It's really, really special. Yeah.
What songs had you released into the world at that point? Was it just covers or were there originals?
They're originals. I think like the Feelings Are Fatal was a big one that kind of like put me on people's radar for bedroom pop because that was just such a genre that was having a moment in 2017 and 2018 with people like Clairo kind of spearheading this like movement of teens in their bedroom like making music and sharing it with people online. I had just been doing a lot of ukulele songs. I did like this one I was also really big into the lo-fi hip hop scene at that point too. And so I had like a song Falling For You under my belt. I did.
Falling For You is so good.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
It's going to hit 1 billion streams.
I think it is. Yeah, which is terrifying. I wrote that in like 10 minutes and like didn't think it would ever turn into the song that it's become. But yeah, it was pretty wild. I had like a couple things under my belt that just took on a life completely beyond what I ever expected.
You had Falling For You at the time of telling your parents?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So being like, hey, so this is the song that I wrote, and looking at the YouTube video and I'd be like 2 million views on it already. And my parents were just like, what? So yeah. Pretty crazy.
Do you understand or like have you figured out why people feel understood by the music you make?
That's a really good question. I think maybe because I'm just like, in a lot of ways, I don't feel very different than the people that maybe are listening to my music. Like, I am just another kid who grew up online with a lot of, like, mental health stuff that I was dealing with. And so, I don't know, maybe people resonate with it because I'm just walking in the same shoes that they are walking in a lot of ways. I don't know, I try to be as honest as possible to the things that I'm, like, experiencing and putting it into music. And I think that people recognize when honesty is present in the art that they're consuming, and I hope that that's the case. So I think maybe that's why, but I don't know. I'm just grateful every day that people do take the time to listen. That's a really crazy thing to think about. People making the conscious choice to like press play on something is pretty crazy. Yeah.
Because they're genuinely understanding who you are at your core.
Mm-hmm. It's really vulnerable stuff. And like, it's crazy. Yeah.
The songs are great.
Thank you. That's sweet.
I've been a fan of yours for so long.
Thanks, Zach. That's really nice.
I am obsessed with anything that is singer-songwriter, anything that is so honest and like overtly confident, and like I want an oversharer.
Oh, and I am one. Yeah,
it's amazing.
If you can count on me to do anything, it's like probably overshare about how I'm feeling.
Plum Blossom is so good.
Thank you.
It is a beautiful EP.
Thank you so much. That's really sweet.
I mean, when I bring up Plum Blossom in that era of time, what do you think of?
Oh my gosh, I have so much like tenderness in my heart for the girl that was in charge of making that. Music was never something at any point in my life that I thought could turn into a job. And like, I am so fortunate that I took a leap of faith to, bet on myself. I remember being 17 and applying to colleges and doing like an architecture application and thinking about, okay, like I'm going to be doing something that's really different. And I was doing music in the background, but never feeling like this could turn into something beyond what it was. And I remember just telling my parents, I think I want to take a gap year before I try and go to school. And now I'm on an indefinite hiatus from the educational system, which has been awesome. But really grateful that I took a chance on myself, and really grateful that like I was brave enough to write the songs in the first place and not worry about what people might think over what I was saying. I really, truly believe teenagers are so brave, and I am grateful every day that I try to do that.
Cry right now? No, because my teenage self was the bravest version of me.
100%.
I resonate with your story very, very, very truly. I started a radio show from my bedroom when I was 14, and I was the most honest.
Yeah.
I did a show to 0 people, but I thought 1,000 people were listening.
Totally.
Until there were literally millions of people listening.
Yeah.
And the most honest, vulnerable version of me was the version of myself navigating high school and being on the radio every night. And like, I remember having to convince my parents of the same thing, right? Like, I was applying to all these colleges. I was reading my denial or acceptance letters live on the radio. I got denied from every fucking school. And I remembered having to have that conversation of like, what if I took a gap year and I just focus on this thing? They're like, yeah, it pays me $12,000 a year.
Yeah.
But like, there's people listening. Like, something's real is happening here.
Totally. Yeah.
And that leap of faith, something that like I don't know if I would do today.
Oh my gosh, no. I'm 24 and I'm so scared. Literally, like, probably never been more scared in my life. But when you're 17, there's something about where you are in
You don't even
life.
know what you have to lose.
Exactly. You're just willing to take chances, I think, in a different capacity. And we owe so much to our younger selves and, like, applauding their bravery for doing things in the first place. I feel that all the time. Yeah.
I used to, like, stand up to adults and authority figures, and I would call people until they fucking answered, and I'd email them until I didn't give a shit.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do any of that today. I'm definitely not my best self because of it. It's very weird.
You got to give yourself a pat on the back for, like, the decisions you made in the past and thinking about how they impact you in your future. I feel like, yeah, I try all the time to think about, like, what would younger Maya do? And I don't always have the bravery to do exactly what she probably would have done, but I think it's important to never feel shame for who you were in the past. Yeah.
But also running that exercise is very important, right? Just to understand the options.
Yeah.
It's weird. Like, I chase very little things in life, but like one of the things I've been chasing the last few weeks is like this feeling of like naivete and blind confidence that I had in high school. Like, I brought it up so many times.
Every day.
I deeply, like, that's the high I want. Like, I want the high of waking up and just doing whatever the fuck it takes and not giving a shit about how people are going to perceive me, or like what people on the internet may say, because it's what I know is my truth.
100%. It's so hard to get back to that. Like, I still don't have the answer. I have no idea. But yeah, thinking about it actively feels like the first step. I don't know.
Smart.
Yeah.
It's good. Liminal Space, by the way, is the brand new album that is on the way. Can you just define liminal space in this context? Because from my understanding, it's literally any space between the start of something and the end of something.
You are so right about that. That is a perfect way to describe it. I'll try and extrapolate a little bit, but honestly, I don't need too much. I mean, I think for me, liminal space in the context of like this project and what it meant to me while I was working on it is really just about transitions. And I think, oftentimes as people, and I feel this in my own life, I felt very strongly about, knowing where a start is and knowing where an end is, and knowing like I'm going to be here at one point and I know I will get to this other point at another area of my life. And then realizing that I actually don't know if that really happens all the time, and kind of being comfortable with the space in between and being suspended between, points, and not feeling rushed to get to a conclusion, or not feeling rushed to begin something in the first place. I think feel like with projects and with music, a lot of times, a cycle for an album is so finite. When you're writing it, when you're releasing it, and when you're putting it out into the world, when you're touring on it, and then the chapter like closes. And I think that my purpose with this one felt very much like, all right, let's let myself float around a little bit and not think about it so much from like I have to tell a consolidated story in the same way that I've gone into other projects in the past. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So you're saying that like, okay, every album, every EP that we've gotten before is from song 1 to the last track on that body of work, that is a story.
I would say that they're more interconnected than they are not. Like, I think it's my first album that I ever released was definitely like a really big, it was a narrative of my teenage years. And then I released...
You're talking about The Masquerade.
Yeah, The Masquerade. And then I had 2 EPs that I released in 2020 called Dawn and Dusk, and then an album, Rising, that came out in 2022. And I feel like the 3 of those felt kind of like a long story from point A to point B, from the beginning of Dawn to the end of Rising. And then I kind of coming into this project and thinking, all right, well, I'm doing my 3rd album now at this point. Like, what am I going to be talking about? And so much of the narrative for mxmtoon has been about growing up, and this is really the first record where I felt like I've been in adulthood the entire time that I was writing it, and I think the narrative as a result can be kind of messy, because it's also like that is just what I've recognized being in my 20s has felt like it's really all over the place. And I know there's been a lot of points where I felt like maybe there's pressure to tidy it up for the sake of other people's like consumption on that story, and I tried not to like let that weigh me down too much when making these songs, and just making stuff that felt really central to whatever I was going through at one point in time. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One of those things in your mid-20s that you're exploring is religion?
Yeah, honestly. Yeah.
By the way, I haven't heard many of the records, only what's out in the world, but I do know the track list based on what you released literally 5 hours ago on Instagram. So I'm just one of the people. Just figuring it out as we go.
Totally. One of the people. And yeah, there is a song called God with a question mark at the end. God? Which I found kind of funny. But I totally, honestly, religion is something that I have thought a lot about in the last couple years, and not necessarily because I feel I was not raised religious, but I come from a family that has a lot of different religions. And so one of the things that I did feel very confronted by was the idea of mortality in the last couple of years, and thinking about my family's mortality, and my mom specifically being someone that I thought centrally about a lot. She got a cancer diagnosis last year, and she's doing much better now. But when those initial conversations came up about chemo and talking about like what stage cancer and everything, it's really scary. It makes you think. And I've had other family members go through cancer diagnoses, and, having 2 grandparents that did go through chemo, and both of them having different religious backgrounds, and how religion was kind of something that they leaned on in hard moments of their life, and learning about my mom's own story, and how religion in some ways provides people like a peace of mind. And as someone who didn't grow up religious, wondering, where am I going to get that from if it's not from this other point? And kind of questioning too, just like in moments of strife and hardship, who do you go to? And God not being a familiar figure in my life, I think there was still conversations within myself to wonder, could I find like peace if I thought that I believed in one? Like, I don't know. It's complicated and it's messy. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What do you learn about religion by living with a bunch of people who live lives of different faiths?
Yeah.
There's a lot of similarities.
Totally. There's a lot of similarities. I think it's honestly given me a really flexible idea of what faith looks like. Like my grandpa was almost going to be a pastor, and my grandma was almost going to be a monk. Like, there's just so many different kinds of backgrounds that I was around. I grew up going to temples in Hong Kong, and I grew up going to church in like upstate New York. So it was really fascinating, I think, being just kind of like a, outside perspective every single time really made me understand just like the power of community as a result of like communal faith in something. But I don't know. I think it just made me kind of approach it with maybe more of a fascination and wonder, rather than feeling like pigeonholed into thinking that I had to believe maybe one thing over the other. Mm-hmm.
Do you believe in manifestation or the power of energy in the universe?
I think I do. Yeah, I definitely believe in like karma and stuff like that. And maybe even to a degree, I believe in like reincarnation. But I don't know. I think I'm figuring out every single day what sort of pillars of faith exist in my own life, and that's kind of the point of the song God. Yeah.
And isn't that like a part of life, is figuring out exactly what faith means for you, but realizing too that religion, collective energy, manifestation, reincarnation, even the core pillars of science all have way more in common than they are different.
Totally. I would agree with you. Totally. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like people do just want answers.
100%. Isn't that like living is just in seeking solutions and seeking understanding? Yeah.
And it makes a lot of sense why people would believe a book that it's a really well put together book. Yes, stories passed down throughout hundreds of years, written by guys and like under the ground, and like it's crazy, but people do need answers. But there are a lot of common threads between religion, science, collective energy. Karma. Yeah. I mean, like, also just like storytelling, I feel like is such a big thing. Like you look at music and I think religion and music have obviously so many interconnected ties to each other. But that was a big thing too that I thought was really fascinating when thinking about my relationship to religion, was just like, what's the common thread here? And a lot of it is storytelling. Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
It's pretty interesting. Can we talk about rain?
Absolutely.
When I'm sitting in the sun, I think about the rain.
Do you now? Wow, that's a great way to put it. I feel like someone should put that in a song.
Well,
yeah.
you're right.
Oh my gosh. I think I did that. Yeah, that's good.
It's giving. It's giving being sad, even when great things are happening.
Exactly. You get it. It's giving. The grass is always greener on the other side.
But what if that grass was fake?
Oof. Now that's something to think about. I don't know. I don't want to go into existential on here. We already talked about God. I guess that's kind of as much as it can go.
That's another podcast.
You did tweet something about rain, saying there are a few songs I've made where I feel like I've poured my absolute heart and soul into every second, and this is one of them.
Yeah. I feel really proud of that song. I'm really like, I remember making it in the room that day and just thinking, wow, I think maybe I was like made to make this song. Like I think, I don't know. I feel really proud of a lot of the music that I make, but I think it's hard to be an artist sometimes when you release something and you're like, I think I feel kind of disconnected from who I was at the point of maybe making that. And that can happen maybe a week after you make a song, or it can happen years after. And for right now, at least where I am, I think with Rain, I will hopefully, fingers crossed, always be proud of that song. I feel really connected to it. I am so proud of the way that it sounds. I'm really proud of the way that I wrote it. Really proud of the fact that it seems to be resonating with people too as they listen to it.
You said that the song is good for those experiencing hope sickness, people who get picked up early from the sleepover.
Yep. If you can't tell, I was one of the kids that got picked up early from sleepovers.
I got a feeling.
It's the Uggs, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah.
Is it disconnected from songs over time, or is it songs taking on a new meaning to you?
Maybe taking on a new meaning. I think as you get perspective, as you kind of zoom out from the point of when you're creating certain things, I think, yeah.
But a part of the hope is that art is the catalyst to that perspective change, right? In
totally.
some cases?
Yeah. Sometimes it takes like writing a song for you to actually kind of understand what you were even talking about in the first place. So yeah, with Rain, I think I had a lot of feelings going into making that song that only got clarified to me as I was writing it. And that can be kind of rare sometimes for me. I think I can go into writing a song sometimes and feel like maybe I don't actually arrive at the point that I wanted to be at the end of making it. Still be proud of the end product, but maybe feel like, I don't know if I stuck to the path the same way that I wanted to. And with Rain, that was never really a thing that came up. I felt like every single second and decision really felt intentional and connected to what I was trying to say. Yeah.
Is there like a feeling of just like a subconscious like flow to when you write records? And maybe it's not matched for every song, but certain songs?
Ooh, yeah. I think with this one specifically, for sure. It just felt like I was writing so much about my experiences of like being a woman and like kind of girlhood too as an idea and concept, and loosely writing about my experience, but also maybe my mom's experience or my grandma's experience, and tying all these narratives together into like one thing. It felt like maybe that was the through line. And I think in the past, it's felt like everything has to like come from me and what I'm living. And this time around, it felt really different and also really refreshing to go into these sessions and feel like, no, I can write about like the collective experience from like a familial perspective in the music I'm making.
Very different for you.
Different for me, yeah.
What is it like to channel other people's emotions, feelings, stories? Like, that's empathy.
It is. And also can feel really uncomfortable because you sometimes don't know if you actually have the space to do that in the first place. And I don't want to ever speak over or speak for the people in my life, but I think I feel really lucky to feel so connected with my family and to bring in their experiences, knowing how they feel about certain things. And maybe even if there's elements of speculation happening, to still give myself the room to do that in the first place and know that like it's okay to maybe not always have a clear-cut response or answer. So, yeah.
It's an interpretation.
Yeah,
Art is fluid.
100%. I'm telling myself that every day. Yeah.
Is I Hate Texas a part of your story, or is that one ripped from the collective experience that you've been able to tap into?
It's like parts and elements from my story and part truth and a lot of lies too. I did not actually move to Texas and I don't hate Texas, and I was touring at the time of releasing this song in Texas, and that was maybe something I won't do again, but certainly learned a lot from it. I think it was really fun though. I've never maybe written a song that is kind of like that level of fiction to it to a degree where I can just kind of like go crazy with the storytelling and not worry too much about what the truth is at the core. And the truth at the core is that I didn't want to run into an ex, and that is true, but I probably wouldn't move states for avoiding him. Yeah.
Is that one of the first songs you've written in that way?
I would say, yeah. I think that there's been songs in the past where there's like maybe some embellishment of fictionalization, but that one's definitely maybe the most detached from like reality that I've ever had.
But still a tiny kernel of truth.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a great song.
Thank you.
As somebody who wants to be a kindergarten teacher,
Yeah.
do you still want to be one?
Maybe.
You
I
never
don't
know.
know. I really love doing what I'm doing right now, but I think I also give major music teacher vibes for like younger education. So, I mean, I play the ukulele for half my career so far, so I'm not far off from probably like teaching a 5-year-old how to do that.
What is it like getting on the Yoga Gabba Gabba soundtrack?
So cool. Like I have such a soft spot for like young, like children's entertainment and stuff like that. I just feel like it's so. Also, Yo Gabba Gabba is a really cool thing to be involved in. Like Thundercat was doing it. It's so
crazy.
cool. The Linda Linda's like it's awesome. It's super cool. So, yeah, and I also just think too about. I've got 2 younger cousins, and they were younger a while ago, but like they're still kids in my life, and they think I'm the coolest ever because I'm like their older cousin that does music, and I don't know. I think maybe I just want little kids to think I'm like hella cool. So Yo Gabba Gabba is the way to go about that. Yeah.
How to be cool to the young kids.
Gotta be cool to the young ones, you know?
Yo Gabba Gabba.
Do you ever feel like you've abandoned the ukulele? Do you miss it ever?
No, I mean, I literally carried one into the studio today, so like I don't think I can feel like I've abandoned it entirely.
Wait, you brought one with you?
I have one from like another work thing I was doing yesterday, but I gotta go to the airport after this, so I've gotta travel with it. But I know what you mean. Like I've definitely leaned away from it in like recent memory. And I don't think it's like, I still view it as a really great instrument, and I still find myself picking one up. But it can also be kind of limiting sometimes too. And like, especially coming from a background of just making music with my voice and the ukulele, I think what sometimes people don't know is like, I didn't choose to do that because I wanted to. Like, I just didn't have any other instrument at my disposal at the time. And so I was doing it kind of out of necessity. But I still really love it. And I feel like it has obviously brought me a lot of ways to connect with my audience and teaching them how to play the music that I'm making and stuff like that. But
Cool.
I have a soft spot for it, but I'm definitely trying to pick up a 6-stringed instrument at this point in my life. Yeah.
We believe in you.
Thank you. I really needed that.
Can we talk about Elevator?
Yeah.
I don't know much about it, but I do know that according to your PowerPoint, it's good for claustrophobic gay people and people who gave Barbie 5 stars on Letterboxd. So I'm confused. How this happened to you in an elevator?
So, okay, I wrote like a bunch of the songs in New York. And so there was a studio that we were working out of that had this like terrifying freight elevator that only had to go 3 whole floors, but it was so scary because you get in and there's like no display.
Yeah, like the big ones.
Yes, it's huge, it's massive, and then you like
barely any doors.
Like chains on the sides,
Yeah,
and like
fuck
you
that.
press the button and you're like, I think that did something, but you're like waiting there for 3 minutes before you hear something go cuckoo. And so every single day I'd take that elevator up to the studio and I would finally get up there, and the co-writer and producer I was working with, Carrie Kay and Rosie, lovely people, we would get in and I'd be like, guys, that was the scariest thing I've ever done in my entire life. And they're like, oh my God, no way. You got stuck in the elevator too? And like, you would get stuck sometimes in between floors and before it would carry you to the actual place you wanted to go. But we had all seen Barbie recently too. And we're like, wow, that Billy song's really good. And like listening to it and thinking about the movie too and kind of what it was about and expressing, and thinking like, all right, well, we're going through, maybe we use the elevator as like a metaphor for kind of like, you know, gender inequality to a degree, and like how do we use that as like a visual representation for how, you know, frustrating it can feel to kind of move upstream sometimes. And man, it was really frustrating to be that elevator, and man, is it really frustrating to be a woman. So yeah, it's pretty, felt tied in. Yeah.
Truth. Truth.
Yeah.
You made this album with all women, right?
I did. Everything
awesome.
was done by a woman. It was awesome.
That's incredible.
It was really, really cool. That was definitely one of my favorite things that I've ever gotten to do. Yeah. All written, all produced, mixed, mastered, visual direction, everything. It was really fulfilling.
You know, a lot of people say they can't do it. It can't be done, right? And
I did it.
but I hear that all the time, right? They're like, oh, you know, wish more women were in the room. Wish more women were in the producer seats. Wish more women had the opportunity to get those masters or, you know, all those points. It is possible.
Just do it.
Just
Like, that's the
fucking do
thing.
it.
I was like, I heard that too all the time. It's like, oh, you know, it's so tough. You
They
can't
don't
get
exist.
It doesn't happen. I'm like, well, why isn't it happening? Like, okay, if it's not happening, then why am I not actively making it happen right
They
now?
make it sound like it's a shortage of talent.
Exactly. I'm like, there is no shortage of women that are incredibly talented at what they do. There is a shortage of people that have not given them the opportunity to utilize that talent and put them in the space in the first place. And so it feels really important to me, especially when you're writing music about your story, and maybe your story is really centralized in this case about your gender. And so making it alongside people that can kind of inherently understand the experiences that you're discussing felt like a no-brainer. So I was really lucky to work with women on stories about women. Like, that's awesome. Makes sense. Yeah.
Like, all of it just totally aligns.
Yeah, 100%.
VHS. This is good for eldest daughters, people that say things used to be so simple, and people who browse their photo library when they're on a plane.
Yep.
And this is based on the meme, I'm not like other girls. I'm like my mom.
It was so true. I'm just like my mom. I laugh the same as her. I dress the same as her.
It's one of the things that you do realize in your 20s that there are certain qualities of our parents that come through.
Oh my gosh, I'll do stuff and I'm like, that was literally Cheryl. Like, who, what, that my mom just like possessed me for a second and did something.
I sound like my dad sometimes when I speak, but then I do shit like my mom. It's mental fuck.
We're just a collage of the people in our life, really. I did like some podcast once and they interviewed my mom and they had to have me come back and be like, this is my mom speaking, because we have such similar voices to each other that there was no way for the editor to differentiate who was talking. So, yeah, no, we are just like a projection of our parents. Yeah.
It's wild.
It is wild. Every single day I see more of her in me.
But this record in particular is dealing with just nostalgia, right? And how beauty is fleeting.
Definitely. Like, so much of, I mean, a lot of the songs on the record about like my relationship to my parents and specifically my mom, and then my mom's relationship to her mom, and just kind of the cyclical nature of, you know, seeing how you become the people that you are closest to in your life. And I feel all the time just like a very nostalgic person. I'm always looking back on things and being like, man, those were the good old days. And I'm literally 24 looking back on like 2 years ago. But I think with my mom, she and I over the pandemic like kind of compiled a bunch of like home videos and photos from like my childhood. And I remember sitting with her and like watching a lot of it and just being like feeling so lucky that she took the time to document those moments of my life. And then getting to see stuff from her childhood too that her mom had documented for her, and thinking about how one day maybe I'll be doing that with my daughter, and just how this is kind of this never ending cycle that continues to happen. So I wrote a song about it.
What a beautiful topic to explore. And I think something that's vital, because at the end of the day, like, we forget that our parents are just human.
My mom was my age once, and my
Yes.
mom was a kid, and sometimes I think like I have this like mental image in my brain. I'm like, wow, I just like picture my mom being in high school and like laughing with all her friends and doing a lot of the stuff that I was doing when I was her age, and thinking about how I will maybe be 54 one day, and like, you know, taking my kid to the airport because she lives in a different state all of a sudden. It's just like all of it will happen to us eventually one day in the same way that it happened to them. Yeah.
When the album's out, you can listen to it all on Amazon Music. Liminal Space.
Yeah, you can.
Link below. Prom Dress is a fantastic record.
Thanks.
It is so good.
Thank you.
A song that just came to you, or a song that was hard to write?
Oh, that came to me really easy.
It's one of those, eh?
It was one of those. I think it was also one of those things where you're a teenager and there's no stakes and you have no idea what you have to lose. So you're just like, might as well just put it all out there for people. And I really did. I was oversharing on Twitter at the time, and like, I had one tweet that was about like how I was crying in a prom dress, and then through the midst of writing it at the very bottom, I'm like, guys, I'm gonna write a song about this. Like, please don't steal my idea. Thank God I did, because that song has really been a juggernaut for me.
Yeah, that one would change your life.
It changed my life 100%. I'm grateful every day. Yeah.
And I got to say, big thank you. You performed that at our virtual prom
I did.
that we did with St. Jude.
That was so special. I'm glad I got to be a part of it. Yeah.
We had a good roster of talent, speared by mxmtoon.
Thank you. Happy to be there. Happy to be on the prom soundtrack for generations of teenagers to come. Yeah.
But genuinely a song that surprised you, or did you know that it was going to be something because of Twitter?
I had no idea it was going to become anything close to what it was. It was also such an interesting time to release a song like that, because TikTok was really starting to take off at that point. And like, I remember it catching like a wave on TikTok and being like, is this going to do something? Because viral songs didn't really exist in short form yet in that way. Like, and so when it did, I was just like, wow, this is crazy. And every single year during prom season, it comes back, and it's like, I've called it my Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas. It's my version. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Forever.
Forever. Fingers crossed. Yeah.
By the way, you sang that song in Simlish.
I did. And I still know it.
Can you sing a little?
Lomita Duzen Bernai Vozir Kochi Bafloni Jaffin Navu Pipamir Doki Bahini Klepa Kobove Benkoya Flow Show Ajinka Rubize.
Wow.
Thank you.
Fantastic.
Bravo.
That's my party trick, yeah.
So they translate the song for you, or
They
you
do.
go through it with them?
They translate it for you. They've got like a team of people that like are in charge of translating songs into Simlish, and then they send you the transcript, and you go in and you have to record literally every track again in Simlish. So you're doing all the background vocals, everything, and like redoing it top to bottom. It's pretty crazy. They try to create it like one for one.
Genius.
It's awesome. It's so much fun.
One of my favorite things is watching people speak Simlish.
It's so like an out of body experience, because I'm sure that is just what English sounds like to people that don't speak it at all. Like, they do such a good job of like imitating the pentameter of what like English sounds like.
It's genius.
Crazy. Yeah. It's awesome.
And for like an internet person, that's a big deal.
It was such a big deal. I grew up playing The Sims. That was one of my first video games I ever played. And so getting into a studio and being like, I'm going to play The Sims and I'm going to listen to my own voice one day. Like, that was an out-of-body experience for sure.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's wild.
So cool. Can you please define what a backroom is?
A backroom in the...
You were ready to go.
I was
You were
trying
like-
to...
you
I
were
gotta get
eager.
it out there. Okay, a backroom. If you're not familiar, there is an internet like subculture called like the Backrooms, and it was this kind of story that was born out of like a series of videos that was posted on YouTube of this guy like no clipping. And no clipping is this concept that you like fall through the floor of reality and kind of go into what is essentially like a purgatory of sorts. And so the Backrooms are like a set of never-ending rooms and hallways that I think the most common visual representation of them are like these yellow like office buildings that have like no furniture in them and then kind of look like mildewy and gross. But I felt like it was such an interesting thing that I fell down into a rabbit hole on my own time when I was scrolling online one day. And then also thinking about that as kind of a visual representation of like growing up, and especially being like a woman and kind of feeling like you're suspended in these like null spaces sometimes, and not necessarily thinking that there's a clear-cut way for you to like succeed or get out or whatever it might be. And but yeah, that's the Backrooms is the best of my ability to describe it.
And that inspires the name of the album.
It does, yeah. Liminal Space. If you're not familiar, there's like a lot of accounts online that post these like liminal spaces, and I'm obsessed with them because I look at the photos and I'm like, that's so creepy and weird, and I just love them. So I tried to name the album after it. Yeah.
Is a part of the female experience always going to be existing in these types of spaces, or is an album like this leading to the ability to not, like, do you know what I'm saying? To tear down those spaces, or is it to just acknowledge that they exist?
I think it's about the acknowledgement that they exist. And like, I think really in my own life, feeling really frustrated by this idea that like, I haven't always felt like I've been able to maybe break through like my own version of the Backrooms. And so just letting myself like sit in it and be okay with not necessarily having an escape from it. And trying to find like, at least the space to explore what the feelings are that I'm experiencing in its like their current form, rather than feeling like I've got to find like the next step. Yeah.
Totally, because that allows you to at least manage and make the most out of the situation you're in, as opposed to.
That's what you got to do. I feel like that's what I've learned, at least, and so much of life is I just gotta take it as it comes. Yeah, you can't really kind of keep waiting for the end. Yeah.
A lot of vital lessons shared in this
I'm trying, yeah.
For real.
Yeah, I think it's like I've been thinking about it all a lot, and obviously thought a lot about it for this record, but thanks for giving me the space to talk about
it.
Yeah.
I think you're 1 in a trillion.
That's really sweet.
No, I really enjoyed every second of our conversation.
Oh my gosh, I had such a great time getting to talk with you guys about this. Rare to be able to talk about such a wide range of topics. Yeah, this is really awesome.
I could honestly do it for days and enjoy it very, very much. And I knew I was going to enjoy it. I just didn't know how much.
I'm so glad that it was positive. I'm having a great time. Yeah.
You're fucking incredible.
Thanks, Zach.
And one of the biggest takeaways, and anybody who's watching, younger side or any age, is like, you are brave. Like,
Thanks.
Understanding how like fucking brave our teenage selves are. People deserve, like, we deserve credit, you know?
Absolutely.
You're fantastic. Do you have any final thoughts?
No, it just makes sense as to why you gave a TED Talk.
Thanks. Oh my gosh, that's so kind.
Yeah, you're so well spoken.
Oh, stop. You guys are sweet. That's really nice. I'm really lucky that I get to do this at all, and really lucky to be able to talk with people like you guys. Give me space to yap. Yeah.
You got 2 cats too.
I do have 2 cats.
Cranky and Spud.
Wow.
Cranky Potato.
Yes. Yeah. They are my life. Love them. Can't wait to see them when we go fly home tonight. And I'm sure I'll get greeted by Cranky yapping at the door. Yeah.
Where is home now? Because you did say you moved to the South.
I did move to the South. I moved to Nashville.
Oh,
yeah.
You're cool.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm trying to be. We'll see. It's definitely, I've got a lot more space now. Excited to settle in. It'll be good.
God, you're building a life.
Trying. Yeah. Trying.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Liminal Space is the name of the album. Please listen to it. Also, your Noah Kahn record's pretty cool too.
Love that guy. Really lucky I got to be on a song with him.
He's a good one.
He is such a sweetie pie. Love him dearly. Yeah. Shout out to Noah.
So can you explain how that even worked? Did he send you something?
He did. He sent me Pride, and you know, he had worked on it with Alexander 23. And so I think there was just kind of, we are under the same management, and a management company. And so it made a lot of sense during the pandemic to kind of reach out maybe to like a friend of the family, and felt really lucky I got to work with him on it. And he's a great songwriter. He's an incredible vocalist. Like, I felt so overjoyed that I got to be a part of something with him.
Great record.
Yes.
Alexander's amazing too.
Totally. He's great. Love him.
So you just like send in your verse and that's it?
Yeah, pretty much. It
No
was
notes?
really easy. Yeah, it was so easy.
No rewrites?
No rewrites.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's sick.
Yeah, it was great.
That's how you know it's meant to be.
I was so lucky I got to do it, and he's also just the funniest person ever.
really is.
Like, he is so charming, and we got to like do an acoustic version of it for YouTube, and I remember going in and just like I've never laughed harder on a day on set ever in my life. Yeah, no, it was great.
Liminal Space. Listen to it. You're really special.
Thanks.
This is
You
great.
are too. You're so brave.
Oh, thanks.
I mean it. Yeah.
Used to be brave.
Used to be brave.
Used to be brave.
You'll get back to it though. I mean,
I'm
you're
on my
thinking
way.
about it. You're trying to make an intentional effort, and that's all we can do. Yeah.
It's yes.
That's all we can
Well,
do.
it's the first step.
Yes, exactly.
Awareness and intentional effort.
Yep. 100%. You're doing it.
Thank you.
You're actively in it, and so am I.
We're all really in it.
Yeah, we are.
And by the way, you're doing great. So
Thank you.
Just keep going.
I'm gonna.
Love ya. mxmtoon, everybody.
Thank you.